What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Spawnhour and Theo Ash. And we are here today to rank our top 10 defenses in the NFL entering the 2025 season. And if you're new to the show or you forgot how we do these rankings, we each come with our own top 10 filled out, and then we use a ranked choice voting format to build a consensus list. But before we get into that, we do have some news to talk about. And before we get into that news, I always have to ask my fellas here, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing on this beautiful Sunday afternoon/evening?
Doing very well. It was a big cleaning day for me. Sometimes things just get too messy and you've got to clean the entire house.
Oh, yeah.
And that was me today. Every nook and cranny, rearranging furniture, sweeping, throwing things away.
How do you feel like your new environment will affect your day-to-day routine and habits?
Well, the couch is now more directly in front of the TV, so maybe my neck will feel better
I totally
over the
feel you,
course of the
man.
long run. But that's about it.
We've got a chair that's just not at a good position for the TV, and when I'm playing a little bit of maybe college football 25, I'm not as effective as I want to be, and I'm not having as much fun as I'd like to. So I think having the direct line couches is going to be a big game changer for you.
Do you
I
have a
hope so.
chair that's like at a 90-degree angle? It's like you have like couch, chair, TV. Is that
That was really, the couch was at like a 90-degree angle, and I just kind of tilt the TV on its stand, so it was more like a 45.
Okay.
It wasn't a great situation, and you can see how the rearrangement was necessary.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, you could tilt the TV and look at it straight on, but now things are just straight on all the time. So yeah. Matt, what have you been up to?
I haven't been up to much. I will say something I've been thinking about recently is how, you know how people make fun of like duck walking people who have their toes pointed out?
Yeah.
I'm
Sophia and I just watched your corporate spawn hour video on this.
Yeah. I've always been like that. People try to like tell you on TikTok, like, here's how to fix it. Here's how you should change yourself. And I don't think it matters at all. I'm pretty sure it's just completely like the way that you are. And I think that, you know, I'm sure we have a lot of listeners who are the same way, and they shouldn't feel bad about it is what I'm saying. For too long, you know, we've been bullied, we've been put down, we've been made to feel like we aren't worth as much, and I'm sick of it.
The
I feel
highest
like a lot
technique
of
is to
that-
have no technique, Matt.
There you
I feel
go.
like a lot of that, people trying to like overcorrect certain things, comes from like high school and college athletics. Because if you were like a college, like if you were like even a high school runner and you like got injured, they would like point to like, oh, it's because of the way that your feet land when you're running. Right. But like for normal people, you're right, Matt, that it's just like totally doesn't matter.
Even then, I mean, like, I don't mean to bring up one dude all the time, but like LeBron has crazy duck feet, like just like
I
me.
didn't know that.
Jackie Robinson had pigeon toes. There's plenty of great athletes who got it either way. Now, maybe like pro sprinting is when you really lock in, but
Yeah.
every once in a while you find someone who's like, there's always a number of people who've like brought it up to like point somebody else out walking like that as I'm walking exactly like that. I don't think it's really that noticeable. I've never paid attention to it. But maybe that's just cope, because something is wrong with me.
Yeah, I know I walk very straight just because like I was thinking about it all the time, like as a runner, and now it's just like ingrained that I walk like in a perfectly straight line. So,
Yeah, I can see it. What news do we have to get into?
Aaron Rodgers is a Pittsburgh
Oh,
Steeler.
right.
Yeah.
I
I
think
didn't think it was
it's-
ever going to happen. Theo, I do owe you $50. And assuming shit doesn't hit the fan and he's still there by week 1, you will get it, because the thing with Aaron Rodgers is he is an insane creature. Like, people pointed out his stats weren't actually that bad last year. And they're right. Like, his stats aren't that bad, but he's just insane. And you have no idea what his volatility will do to the organization. And I think that's a huge risk to have him around just because of that.
I mean, yeah, he showed up and he took that picture of him signing the contract, and I think he had a wedding ring on his finger, and he's not married. Like, what?
He's
like,
married
why
to the
is it
game.
always something? Why is it always something? There's always some speculation or weirdness surrounding him. And maybe if the Steelers organization is like rock solid, those things can be they won't matter,
Yeah.
Like maybe with the Jets, right? The owner fires Saleh, like Hackett is the OC. They bend to all of his things. Like, maybe if the organization is more solid than that, like, his unpredictability will do less to sink it. But like, are the Steelers really that solid right now? Is kind of my thought.
I mean, the Jets
offensively.
passing offense and the Steelers passing offense were basically neck and neck in EPA per play last year. So like,
it's hilarious.
Really going to be that different
on the efficiency chart? They're stacked on top of each other, like where these two offenses ended. So I kind of think it'll look the exact same as it did on the Jets, down to they might have to make a trade for another receiver.
Yeah, it's like maybe it'll look better.
They want
with
another
Pickens
weapon.
and DK,
Yeah.
but now it's just DK, so it'll look exactly the same.
I don't see how this doesn't look different for Pittsburgh. I mean, maybe DK and Rodgers is like a marginal upgrade over Wilson and Pickens. Maybe Rodgers can throw over the field a little bit more than Wilson can. Maybe another year removed from the Achilles, and he gets a little bit of juice back, but that's like he's 41. That's a big that's a big age. He's old, right? But I think for the most part, it's like Rodgers has to get the ball out quickly. He throws outside a lot. He can't create like he used to because he's older. The weapons are really not that great, and it's an Arthur Smith offense. I just feel like the ceiling is super, super low still. And I think the Steelers' number one issue is that it's been low ceiling for a long time, and because of that, they can't really compete if they get to the playoffs winning like 10 games or whatever. So unless something significantly changes with what we've seen from their current guys going forward, I think they're going to have a very comparable season to what they've done in years past. I will say it is always easier said than done. There's only a handful of things I would have rather done than gone and got Rodgers, like Geno or maybe Darnold for his price point, or maybe one of the guys in the draft. But with Ward going at 1, I don't even know if I necessarily blame him for not like reaching on somebody.
Would you have in like round 4 taken Shador?
Well, that's not too different than what they did.
Yeah.
I get Will Howard, sure.
Right.
Which I do still think we'll see Will Howard at some point this year.
Rodgers is
not
banged up.
It's really.
I'm interested because I do think things will look different. I just don't know if the results will be different. With Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers, those are two philosophies that really could not be more opposed. Like, Arthur Smith would like to play with one wide receiver on the field for 10% of the passing plays, like they did last year. Rodgers, he wants more options than that. He wants to spread out. He wants to manipulate the space and have more passing windows available to him. So I am kind of interested to see what emerges from the collective brain trust of those two. Could it be something that's helpful for both of them to have kind of these two very different ideas kind of clashing? Could there be a balance that gets struck where they're a little bit more spread out than what Arthur Smith wants, but their pass rate is maybe a little bit lower than what Rodgers wants, and that's to the benefit of both sides? Or will it just be they both are miserable, and it doesn't work out at all, this marriage. Given the talent level on the Steelers offense, I kind of think the latter is more likely. Like if it wasn't just DK out there and they had, a better second option than Kelvin Austin or Robert Woods, then I might say, well, there is some balance that could be struck here and things could work out. But when it's so top heavy with the weapons, I just don't know if when you're, dividing up who is actually getting the ball in this offense 5 ways for all the skill position players, like that doesn't really seem like it's going to be able to be divvied up in something that equals efficient offense, no matter how they choose to do it. I do think the Arthur Smith meta of running the ball at the 5th highest rate while having the 25th rushing success rate is like not it. So maybe they are helped out by passing it a little bit more and spreading out, which I'm just sure Rodgers will bring to them. So maybe it can work out and they'll be a little bit better than last year, but I don't know. You're trying to thread such a tight needle or a tight thread through the windows. Yeah, it's going to be hard for them to stick the landing and actually become contenders here. With a Rodgers that's seeming more and more.
You can't go into the season with just like no serious option.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Rodgers is a good option for them as kind of I'd rather have him than Kirk Cousins at this point,
The issue is there's 2 perspectives that you view this through. Do you view it through the perspective of what their options were this offseason? Because if that's the case, then I don't think this is that bad of a move at all. Trading up would have been nearly impossible. I don't really like many of the quarterback prospects outside of Ward all that much. And I liked Shuck, but he went very high, so I don't blame them for that. And again, Darnold, I think would be fine because he doesn't have a ton of guaranteed money. And Geno probably would have been the guy to pull the trigger for. But overall, I know people say people always say to wait in off season. That's always the thing. But this is not a bad off season to punt on needing a QB. The issue is that the other perspective is one where the Steelers haven't had a serious guy at quarterback in a long time. I know they drafted Pickett, and that is a serious swing when you're picking a guy in the first round, but that never really looked like it was going to turn into the next dude. And when you're not aggressive, getting somebody who can elevate the offense, I mean, you stay sputtering around. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016? That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think Tomlin's a great coach. I also think he's on the hot seat. If they do the same thing again, there is a limit on how many times. Now, maybe Tomlin has so much goodwill in Pittsburgh. I'm not making a prediction, but maybe he has so much goodwill in Pittsburgh that he survives one more year and can then get another chance to take a swing on a QB. But even then, the Steelers are probably going to be pretty far down in the draft order unless something happens, right? They're not going to win 2 games or anything, probably. So I don't know. From that perspective, it's definitely frustrating.
I wish their direction this offseason was to lose games, honestly. I would not have been mad at shipping off TJ Watt or shipping off Minkah Fitzpatrick or shipping off
that's the same strategy.
It is.
That's the same strategy you guys suggested for Cleveland also. Just you don't have the answer at quarterback. You haven't had that in quite some time.
Garrett.
Why keep trying to push it down the line and keep extending these guys if you're nowhere closer than you were 2-3 years ago?
Yeah, embrace the losing record. It's not that bad for Tomlin to have a losing record if it happens on his terms. If you keep stacking the team to try to win games and you're not really winning any playoff games, that's when it starts to get into the fired zone, right? You're really putting in an effort. You're trading a 2nd round pick and handing DK Metcalf $100 million. Everyone's going to get excited about Rodgers, right? You kept all the old stalwarts on defense around. So the expectation is you got to win a playoff game. And from the perspective of that, I don't think Rodgers brings them there. I mean, I think waiting and getting Rodgers is fine. Yeah, like I said, I'd rather have him than Cousins, which is probably your other option at this point. I'd think that Rodgers still has plenty of juice in his arm. In his arm, he still can flick it, right? but he doesn't have any of the creation magic that he used to have. And like maybe this line is a little bit better than the Jets line from last year, and that helps things out, but the receiving core is not better. So I just think it'll go very similar to the Jets season last year, where Rodgers is not happy with the overall performance from the receivers or the line or the running backs or anybody.
I started a Steelers rebuild in Madden, and the first thing I did, like after the Rodgers signing happened, the first thing I did was I traded Rodgers and I traded Darius Slay, just because I'm like, these guys are too old. They're not getting it done. And then I probably should have also traded Cam Hayward because he retired that very same offseason. So I'm like, and that's not unreasonable. Like Cam Hayward could retire this offseason.
Not this offseason, but next offseason,
yeah. Yeah, next offseason.
Yeah.
But
how long is this actually going to be a top 10 defense? I guess we'll find out, because we got the top 10 defense. Are they even a top 10 defense now? Is there anything top 10 about this?
I'll say as a spoiler to the list, they did make the list.
All right. Well, maybe they do have something to build off of then. And let's get into the rankings here.
Let's get into it. And we'll start with our honorable mentions, as we have been usually. There's a few teams that got put on each of our lists but didn't make the final cut. Starting with the Chargers. That was a team that I thought to put on, but Matt, I think you were the only one to have them in, and you slotted them in at your 10 spot. So take it away if you want.
Yeah, no, I thought they were really good last year. I know maybe like on paper they aren't as crazy as some of the other defenses here, but overall, like their pass rush was really effective. I thought they did a good job flying around as a whole. Derwin James is still a really great player. I put them in at 10. I'm not necessarily mad about them getting in, because I kind of think there was a tier break for me after like 8 or 9. And I think maybe one of those. No, I think my top 8 or 9 all made it. But I just feel like they're well coached. I think they were top 10 in EPA per play last year.
Oh yeah, way up there.
So I kind of think that they're sort of a sleeper to repeat that. I don't think there was anything fluky or phony about their performance last season.
Yeah, I kind of struggle with them because in terms of not allowing points, I think they were the best defense in the league last year, which is kind of the main goal, right? But then you stack up kind of their roster compared to some of the other rosters, and it's like, man, can they really do that? That defense, more than offense, changes every year. Like the top 10 lists are kind of random.
Yeah.
So just based on kind of the talent level of everything, the interior defensive line, the edge rushing room, the linebackers, I like Henley, I guess, but there wasn't a lot of like all pro talent there, I thought. So I was like, I don't know if they'll repeat it. They still got Derwin.
Mac
still is a really promising young player. Mac still
was
very
great,
powerful.
but I understand if you're like, well, we'll see year to year with Mac. And maybe I should have dinged them more for having Dante Jackson, who terrorized me.
I mean, that's the thing is I look at a lot of these defenses, and even some that were very good last year, and I'm like, how many like good players do you have at all 3 levels? And the Chargers to me feel like yeah, they were a good defense last year, but man, I go count the good players and it's just like it's literally like Mac, Tart, and Derwin, and outside of that,
yeah, and
struggling to.
I get it. Mac is old. Derwin James is always a little injury prone, so it's not that hard to imagine where like they fall off the face of the earth.
Yeah, but I did think about putting them in my 10 spot because they were effective last year. Theo, you had the Miami Dolphins on your list, and they did not make it. That's another team that I think is fun to consider. They have some really good players, I feel like, in their front 7. Why did you? What was your justification? You had them at 9.
They were really banged up last year, but they still finished top 10 in defensive success rate and DPA. I'm a big Anthony Weaver believer. I think they do good things, and yeah, they've got some really good bodies up front to rush the passer with. Sealer is one of the more underrated players in the league. He's constantly making an impact. They've added Grant next to him. We'll see if Phillips and Chubb can stay healthy, but even if they don't, I'm really high on Chop Robinson.
I do like Chop.
Yeah,
he had a great pressure rate last season. So with all of those guys kind of together, they can get after the passer and make up for some of the obvious issues that are in the secondary, especially if they end up trading Jalen Ramsey away. But because of the coaching and because of the pass rush, I thought they were a valid shout when they finished top 10 last year. And then Brooks, of course, is kind of a unique linebacker who can defend the run and the pass at a really high level. So I snuck them in there. I was kind of surprised with how high I even ranked them because, man, the secondary really is we'll see if they can replace Holland with Ashton Davis, Melon Fonwu, and Dante Trader, who they drafted. I kind of like all three of those players, but like any of them emerging as really good starters is like, do I like them that much? So we'll see.
Yeah, that secondary could bury them, and it's tough to live like that. The last honorable mention is Theo. You actually convinced me to move the Chargers off of my top 10 and put the Colts on, and they were first team out here because of that. I am sort of still high on the Colts, but I don't know quite how high. They're another team that I really believe in their defensive line. And I do think their secondary is definitely improved with the addition of Ward, and they've got Cam Bynum and they've got Kenny Moore still. So like there's definitely some good players in the secondary where I look at Miami and I feel like they're not quite as well rounded up there.
Yeah, and we'll see about the edge production. I still believe in Latu. They added JTT. Kwity Paye has always been solid there, even if he's never broken out into somebody great. With the addition of Lou Anarumo, it does feel like they could sneak into a top 10 spot. They remind me a little bit of the Packers from last year, the Colts. Like Love was a lot more proven than Richardson, but there's kind of a lot that's the same, I think, where they're banking on the Pierce, Downs, and Pittman core with Mitchell, right, to kind of get better, right? They didn't make any additions in the receiver room, and that kind of is similar. You've got kind of the young, toolsy quarterback, and you've got a defense with players, and then you're just hoping that going from Bradley to Anarumo can kind of elevate them to the talent level that's here. But yeah, they can stop the run with Stewart and Buckner. They can rush the passer. Like Buckner's, I think, super underrated and kind of always brings the pass rush to kind of a baseline level.
Yeah.
With Ward there and more, like you said, Blaiden, there's a lot that's good about this team.
There's a path to being considerably better. I see it. I didn't include it, but I don't think it's crazy. I will say
at number 10.
The Colts receivers are already good, I think. I think their production would be better if it wasn't for the quarterback situation. I think Downs and Pierce, okay, don't be the highest on Pittman. I can get it, but I think the receivers are nice, man.
Well, from the Packers perspective, the Packers receivers were good going into 2024. They should have been. And then they just weren't. But yeah, they're built through the offensive line. I don't know. Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, like they got kind of similar things going on. But yeah, I'm not mad that they're not actually in the top 10. Blaiden, you've always been on their linebackers, and upon rewatching them, you're right that the linebackers are pretty rough. So
yeah, and I a lot of people still love Zaire Franklin, and he's like, as far as a bad linebacker goes, as good as it gets. But,
I agree.
But it's still not great, I think. But if we get into the actual top 10 here, at number 10, we have the Cleveland Browns. And Theo, you are helping out here a lot because I was worried that I was going to be the only person to consider the Browns at all. But I think there's always a team that is like considered to be like a sort of a bad defense from the year before that ends up being a good defense the next year. And I think that probably will be Cleveland this year. I think a lot of the What?
It's probably going to be, yeah, it's probably going to be Browns.
It'll be my team, right? Yeah. Well, again, if we're talking about a defense that has good players at all levels, the Browns' defensive line has the potential to be one of the best in the NFL this year. Once again, right? Getting back to that level, and they still have a great defensive coordinator. I like adding Carson Schwessinger. I think you'll see a lot of him and Grant Delpit next to each other underneath, especially with JOK still being out. I don't know what the timeline for him returning is. And then in the secondary, it's not great, but you still got Denzel Ward, who is an all-pro caliber corner. So having, again, it's just good players at all three levels, and I think the Browns have that in some capacity.
I agree. And you can bank on them being top 5 in pressure rate, and that's really the thing that made me include them in the top 10 is when you can really rush the passer with 4 people, it's hard not to be a great defense. And with Garrett and now Mason Graham, the Browns can do that. They were so historically good in 2023, right? One of the best defenses, regular season defenses of all time. And then they slipped a little bit in 2024. But can they kind of normalize as kind of a back end of the top 10 type of team in 2025? I think so. They were 6th in defensive success rate last year, but they were 18th in EPA, which lets you know that they were giving up a huge amount of big plays. Can they cut down on that a little bit and get closer to where their overall success rate was? I think they can with Garrett. I just think
a lot of that was Emerson and Newsome getting absolutely
who are still starters.
yes,
but they are. But maybe they could. But they were starters in 2023 as well, right? Like
exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
So I don't know.
The pressure is going to have to get home more than it did last year, but it might not be as much as it was in 2020.
But what was the takeaway from that 2023 defense? That they were kind of baloney. They were ranked very highly in the regular season, but when push came to shove and it got to the playoffs, it was too much Myles Garrett and not so much everybody else. I agree. I think there's a chance for the Browns to recover in terms of their regular season defensive performance. When you have Garrett, I agree, the pass rush can only be so bad. And I really like Mason Graham. I think he's going to be a good player. So I can see the vision there a little bit. But I don't ultimately think they've overcome what made them kind of get exposed by the Texans. I don't think their secondary is that great.
I'm not.
And I think maybe if they were going against the current Texans with their offensive line issues, it would go a little bit better. But I don't know. In general, I think the ceiling is maybe a little too low on the Browns. Now, we might never learn this. It might be an easy thing to say because we probably won't see what this defense looks like in the playoffs this year. No disrespect. And I don't hate it down here at 10, but I left them off for a reason. I think I need to see more material gains in terms of the secondary being able to hold up.
I wish I could say, they drafted so and so in the second round, and if
you're not high on Schwessinger, then I'm man, it's I understand defenses are volatile, but it's you're banking only on Mason Graham as the actual thing that's improving.
Well, I think even without Mason Graham, I think the rotation, the depth on Cleveland's defensive line is kind of insane.
It's ridiculous. I agree, Blaiden. Alex Wright is somebody who missed almost all of last year, and he's somebody who's kind of a freak with inside-out versatility that I think can really factor into this pass rush as well. They added Malik Collins this offseason, who's always been a good pass-rushing defensive tackle, along with Graham. Tryon Shanka is another former first-round pick. So what? He's mega.
Yeah. They still have Mike Hall, who was hurt.
Mike Hall, right, and held a gun to
that's true.
Somebody's head.
We don't need to talk about that. He exists. Shelby Harris exists. Ogbo Okoronkwo exists.
Yeah, I just think it's hard to be if you have a top 5 pass rush, which I think they have a good chance to be.
Mm-hmm.
They can be the 10th best defense, at least in the regular season, and we won't know how they translate to the playoffs because they're not making the playoffs. So
Why not, man?
we'll deal with that.
Give me one good reason why they won't make the playoffs.
I got 5, and they all play QB. But who's number 9? I see what you're saying, Matt, about how they're top heavy, and maybe the Chargers maybe don't have the star power, but at least if evenly distributed talent can keep them ahead of the Browns like they were last year.
And the Browns are also going to run a lot of man coverage, and if Newsome and Emerson just keep losing, it's not gonna matter.
Yeah.
So, but at number 9, we do have the Pittsburgh Steelers. We've been talking all this time about their offense and how things are going to look with Aaron Rodgers. How are things going to look on defense with T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, Minkah Fitzpatrick, etc., Joey Porter Jr., now Darius Slay? How are they going to be?
I don't know. I think their defensive line is incredibly talented too. If we're talking about great D lines, I don't think TJ is quite on the level of Garrett, but I think he's still a tier 1 pass rusher. And on top of that, you obviously have Highsmith. Hayward's coming off a great year. You got Harmon coming in there. That's a really great 4. I think Harmon will contribute early. But on top of that, you got Minkah, Slay. They were good last year. There's reasons to have hope for the other position groups as well. And I think at 9, we're not really projecting much improvement for them, even though I think they could stand to be a little healthier. And I feel like they've proven themselves a little bit more in the playoffs at times, albeit not always great. And it's tough when the offense is so stagnant. But there's a reason why the Steelers are always finding a way to not have a losing record. It's because this defense is pretty proven. I know it's volatile, but Pittsburgh really hasn't been. And any given year, the age could get to them. Slay is really starting to get up there, so maybe this is around the time where it starts to roll back or whatever. And Watt's getting up there too. I see the vision on them potentially not being on the list. And it is volatile, but I kind of have faith in Pittsburgh.
I get it. I mean, they better be a top 10 defense because the 5 biggest cap hits that they have this year are all defensive players, and they must be the only team in the league that's true for. Watt, Fitzpatrick, Hayward, Highsmith, and Queen are the biggest hits to their team this year. So, yeah, they're Pittsburgh. It's their identity. They better be good on defense. And, yeah, I think they will be. But with the age, we'll see. Watt had his worst year in terms of winning one-on-one pass rush battles last year, which concerns me a lot. Hayward had maybe his best year doing that, which is weird, but he's 37.
I was about to say at 90.
And then Porter is a star corner, I think. I love their safety duo, Fitzpatrick playing the fireman up top with Elliott in the box. That's kind of hard to beat. So, yeah, they don't have the ceiling to be number 1 all of a sudden with how old they are, but they should stick in kind of that 7 to 12 range, right? Pretty reliably. So
they're a dangerous team to face any week just because they're just a good defense.
Yeah.
So sorry, Steelers fans, we didn't talk about you to some insane extent, but at number 8, we have Kansas City. That's true. We did start off in the beginning of the episode with them. Kansas City Chiefs are the number 8 team, just coming off a Super Bowl loss.
I disagree with this.
You did not have them on your list at all.
I think the defense is what slipped more than anything last year, more than the offense is what I kept pounding the table about is look, the offense, sure, it's not sexy, but they are driving down the field in short chunks at an unprecedented rate. It's the defense that is getting worse, and their 4-man pass rush is getting worse outside of Chris Jones. Karlaftis just isn't the number 2 you'd want up front. And they lost Snead, right, and they felt it. And now they've lost Justin Reed. Everybody's another year older, including Chris Jones, who's they weren't a top 10 defense last year. They were 15th in EPA per play. They were 13th in success rate. So to have them at 8 now, I can't get there.
Well,
I can't get there.
What were the Browns?
Well, the Browns added more on defense, did they not? I mean, they invested the 5th overall pick in it, and their stars aren't quite as old. Like, what did the Chiefs do? They lost one of their better defensive players.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to what you're saying, but you didn't say Myles Garrett's gotten another year older.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I think Spagnuolo is very proven in the playoffs, and that's a big deal. I think they still have multiple like very, very top tier first team All Pro stars. We can talk about whether or not like the secondary as a whole is going to be quite as good without Reed, but you still have Cook and Connor there. I don't think that's like that bad of a duo personally. I don't know. I don't think that this is a defense that I'm looking at that I'm saying like has no chance. And they've never been stacked on the defensive line outside of Jones. So I think 8 is like kind of reasonable for them. And honestly, like, yeah, maybe the defense did slip a little bit and it wasn't as elite as it was when they won the Super Bowl. But I think the offense also was kind of having like a BS year. I think the offense was just as big of an issue. When push came to shove in the Super Bowl, they were screwed regardless of whether or not the defense let up 40 points because of where the offense was. Even if their like success rate was awesome and they were somehow making do on like, 3.9 yards a carry and whatever, and Mahomes like making something happen with,
Right.
Travis Kelce out there with like a walking cane or whatnot. Like I think there was regression on both sides of the ball. Maybe the takeaway at the end of the day for Kansas City last year is like, okay, it's a pretty big miracle they really ended up making the Super Bowl. Like maybe we're underestimating because it's the Chiefs, like how much of a step they took back. Maybe that's not even related to what we're talking about, but I think 8 is perfectly reasonable, honestly.
I think it's too much of a jump. When they didn't finish top 10 last year, I just don't see them jumping into it this year. But they did draft my guy Omar Norman Lott, and he might give them a lot of juice next to Chris Jones in a way that I think the other guys have been around a long time, and none of them have really taken the step that Omar Norman Lott could take. But yeah, I didn't really consider them for the top 10 list at all.
I mean, they were top 10. They were top 5 in points allowed, top 10 in yards allowed, and
because the offense dominated.
Because like time of possession, and in some capacity, that's true. But like also, I don't know. Like I do think it's definitely reasonable to be like, well, the only team to really like hang points on them were what, like Buffalo and Kansas City, or not Philly, right, in the Super Bowl. It was like those are really the only teams that were giving them buckets. So
but no one could give them buckets because they never allowed the other team to like hold the ball because they didn't turn it over.
Philly gave them buckets.
Well, yeah, like Philly dominated them, obviously, but over the course of the year, I'm saying their points, you can't really get into a shootout with a team that is dominating like the Chiefs were for the regular season last year, like dominating time of possession. So I mean, Chris Jones is a game changer. Trent McDuffie's a game changer. The stats being what they are.
Still,
that's the thing. Is like they're still
and like what's the gap between 13 and 8 in terms of like EPA? I get where you're coming from, though. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit because they're the Chiefs, and I'm saying, well, they've got Spagnuolo, so that's so much when there's other good defensive coordinators out there. But I don't think them being at 8 is that crazy. I think there's still a great defense.
Yeah, but Theo, to your point about the EPA success rate, the Colts were higher than them.
You'd rather be the Dolphins. No way. Just no way.
Yeah, maybe that's true.
and you know what? The consensus list list reflects.
I see your vision on them not being top 10. Like, and to some point, what we say a lot, like if you didn't get better, you got worse, or if you stayed the same, you got worse, and if you got worse on paper, maybe you really got worse, and we're guessing on some volatility. But like, dude, on paper, this is not There's no way we're going Dolphins over them.
They were 19th in yards allowed per drive last year.
Yeah, defenses are so volatile. They're due for
They're
progression to the
skyrocketing.
mean.
He's
They're going to
Jones about
finish
it in his
fourth.
second prime.
That's true. He's about to have his Cam Hayward moment, and he'll get back
get
on track, man.
Better and better.
How
in the
old is
next
Chris
5 years.
Jones?
He's got to be like 32.
He's just straight 30. But his birthday,
Okay.
July 3rd.
Oh, that's almost your birthday.
Shout
Okay,
out.
it's 31.
It is.
It's a day before Matt's birthday.
His age 31 season, not his age 32 season. Sorry, everybody. All right, who's at number 7?
At number 7 is the Seattle Seahawks, another team I was shocked to see both of you consider to some extent.
They're pretty good, and they're pretty good in the secondary, which I like. I like Julian Love a lot. He kind of had a breakout year. So did Kobe Bryant after moving him from nickel to
Shout
safety. Like
Yes,
both of those guys, shout out to Cincinnati, Kobe Bryant. Like having both of those guys combined with Witherspoon, combined with Woolen, who has negative amounts of dog in him, but so much coverage acumen like in his body that like he's still a positive corner, probably. I like that about them. And when a lot kind of hinges on Leonard Williams playing at the all-pro level he was playing at last year, like if he slips, I could worry about the pass rush just a little bit. But the pass rush is pretty good for a team that I worry about the pass rush. You know what I mean?
Where did they finish last year in terms of sacks? I'm seeing them at 10.
Yeah.
I actually think their pass rush, I think Mike McDonald makes up for not having top tier guys. Like that's almost the thing he does to me.
Right.
Because the Ravens for a long time had a winning pass rush without a top tier dude. And I agree, like on paper, whether or not, like we've talked about, whether or not they have the total stars, and I feel like I brought this up about them a million times, but whether or not they have the total stars is kind of a question mark. But Leonard did have a very good year last year, and I'm a big Witherspoon guy. I think you can count them in that. And overall, like their performance last year as a defense was pretty good. So I think here at 7 is not completely unreasonable.
Yeah, and I think their pass rush will be even better this year. I mean, Uchenna Nwosu, I think only played like 6 games or something, and he's really good coming off the edge. They have DeMarcus Lawrence now. Like, I think
Wari could be cool for them as well. That's unrelated, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm not counting on him to make too much of a difference right off the bat. But still, it's a nice bullet to have in the chamber.
But, when there's a difference between teams that it's like, are you adding anybody? Are we taking shots?
Yeah.
We're playing maybe a little bit of a range of outcomes. I agree. I don't know. I don't dislike him as much as you, but also I'm not going to be like, this defense is better than this defense because Wari, I'm expecting to come in and just instantly dominate.
And Wari not needing to come in and be like an impact player day one, I think makes them better for that. Like if we were coming in and it's like, yeah, dude, their secondary kind of stinks and they're hoping Wari is going to fix it, then I'd be more concerned.
I want Wari also to be a corner and not a safety. I feel like Wari's movement skills at his height are so crazy that he can kind of mirror people in a unique way. But he just doesn't really have the downhill trigger that I like from a safety. Like I almost think it could be Witherspoon in the nickel, Reek Woolen outside, and Wari on the other outside, and then Love and Kobe. Like nice. That to me is like dream Seahawks starting 5 in their secondary, and maybe some of the like physicality issues with Wari get smoothed over in that way. And then who knows what they could be if like that hit, like holy cow, their secondary would be good.
Has Wari ever played corner in his life?
I think I saw one practice rep of him like in press mirror coverage, and that was enough to convince me that he should play there full time. Like it was such a beautiful rep, but I was like, this guy is so big and fluid with the reach. Like, just stick him out there and don't even worry how he, like, I mean, obviously corners have to tackle, but it's not quite as important as if he's a safety running the alley, where I think he can be a little bit like, should I go? Should I not? Like, and gets washed a little bit on film. But at any rate, he could be a very exciting piece to that secondary. And they were a top 5 defense down the stretch last year. They started a little bit slow, but then they like fired all their linebackers midseason. They brought in Ernest Jones, and they were 5th from week 10 on in EPA per play. So there definitely is a lot to like about them. I think they're a little bit volatile, but they're volatile in the way that they could be super high end as well.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
At number 6, we have the Minnesota Vikings, who, Blaiden, you did not have on your list.
Oh,
I'm going in the opposite direction when we talk about volatility, man. Like, I, to some extent, understand that, like, okay, defensive line could be nasty, right? Jonathan Allen, Hargrave, Grenard. Linebackers could be filthy. Ivan Pace, Cashman, Van Ginkel. Secondary could be really bad. Like, we're talking, like, if we're saying, oh, the Browns secondary could be horrible if like the other corners outside of Ward aren't like up to par, they don't have a Denzel Ward. And I could just, that's kind of my thing where it's like, I get another good defensive coordinator does a really good job of getting the most out of his players. But if they were, I could just very easily see that secondary really falling apart. How old is Harrison Smith at this point, man? Like, we're talking about old guys falling off. He's 36. He turned 36 this year, man. I don't know.
He's probably like Ben washed though, and they were a top 3 defense. And Gilmore was their starting corner last year. And like, what is he? I think
who are their starting corners this year?
It's the same, but they were amazing last year on defense.
Yeah, they were.
I think Flores has maybe correctly identified that position in this defense isn't quite as necessary as like it is for the Browns when they're chasing guys around in man. Like the exotic blitz looks, the replacement pressures, right? It's so much for the quarterbacks to kind of work through that it does seem a little bit difficult for them to throw on the secondary, no matter who's out there. Yeah. But with that being said, like, I mean, I was screaming at my TV, just like, pick on the corners. Like, please just throw it, run a comeback route and pick on the corners. And maybe they figured that out this year and things changed a little bit. But
some extra tape. They're like, man, we could really take advantage of this.
But Jonathan Allen is a big get, like Jonathan Allen is somebody who,
that's another defensive line, could be the best in the NFL. Like,
yeah. And that's
with
why
Flores cooking up there. Yeah, I kind of think they added a couple of pieces that I'm interested in. I agree the corners aren't top tier, but they weren't top tier last year. Yeah. I agree. Maybe that's the same logic for the Browns, though. Maybe.
And that's where I'm like,
but I just have more faith
are they 4 spots higher than Cleveland? Like,
I like Flores' approach more than Jim Schwartz's approach, though. Like,
okay. See, if I were a defensive coordinator, I would be Jim Schwartz. I'd be blitzing and running man all the time. So,
who is the defense that did that in the Lions? The Lions did that last year, right? And they got cooked in the playoffs, and the Browns did it the year before. And man coverage is in the dirt right now, bro. You got to get to non-traditional Tampa 2. Like get
better corners.
Basically, 3 high safeties, right, with that pole runner, and and win with your defensive tackle and get pressure at the A gap. Like, what are you gonna do? Simple stuff. And Allen is still so active with his hands, like doing moves that no one else really does, like his signature hump move. Like I think he's gonna be slicing through defenses like hot butter. And
I saw someone.
Grenard is still good.
Someone asked on Twitter, I think it was yesterday or the day before, there was like, how do you even tell the difference between Tampa 2 and cover 2? And I think the best way I've kind of come to it is like literally what you said, 3 high safeties. It's basically cover 3. It's basically cover 3.
Yeah. If the mic stays down, it's cover 2. If the mic turns his hips and starts running
immediately, it's Tampa.
Cover 2 really does not get called, I think, that often compared to Tampa, I feel like. But
I don't know. I guess it depends on like who your mic is in some capacity.
That's fair.
But I can't like think of a team that would be out here just running plain cover 2 zone.
Yeah, it exposes
like a really
the
easy
areas
defense
between
team,
your two safeties so much that a lot of teams, I think, prefer to run those Tampas. But yeah, I think the Vikings got a lot of good things going for them, even though I agree the outside corners are big weaknesses. But I like Isaiah Rodgers. I've always been an Isaiah Rodgers guy.
Sure.
And he stepped up for the Eagles when Slay was kind of in and out of the lineup. Like I thought Isaiah Rodgers did a good job. They got Jeff Okudah. They got Mekhi Blackman, who tore his ACL last year, and maybe he's like. There's a world where the corners are actually a little bit better than they were last year. Maybe.
There's a world.
There's also a world where that's not true.
Where they're like, there's also a world where they're one of the worst cornerback rooms in football. Yeah, man. And like Harrison Smith like really falls off. Yeah. And it's like the worst secondary in football. But yeah, I don't hate having them in the top 10. It's just like near the top 5 is where I'm like, I don't know if I can get behind that just based on the guys they have in the secondary.
Trust Flores, man.
And you know what? I probably should, because I've always been on the Trust Flores train for a long time.
That's what surprised me, bro. You're giving up on
Flores.
I'm not even giving up.
You hate him now. I don't get it.
That's true.
And you hate the Vikings? Why do you hate the Vikings, bro?
Why do you hate the Vikings?
Well, Theo's supposed to hate the Vikings, if anyone. He's also supposed to hate the first team in our top 5, which is the Detroit Lions.
There's a big question with the Lions. I had them the lowest of the three of us. I think I had them at 7 or 6, which is not that low compared to
I
what
had them right
them.
here at 5, so.
I don't think Hutchinson coming back and being like mega effective right away is a guarantee. And like, I'm just basing that off of his injury was really bad, and it's hard to come back from really bad injuries. He's obviously young, and when he's good, I mean, I was saying last year, like I think he would have won Defensive Player of the Year if he had stayed healthy with the pace that he was on early. Pretty small sample size, but like he was a tier 1 guy. He is a tier 1 guy.
He got hurt and continued to lead the league in sacks and pressures for like 3 weeks after that.
Right, like he was doing was nuts. Not to judge too much off of like such a small sample size.
It was plumbers and mailmen tackles he was facing. His pace was still ridiculous, but I have to say it. The Rams tackle that he played week 1 was the worst football player I've ever seen. He was hitting the spin move on every play, and he was just torching this guy every single play.
Look, he's still cooked up, and he still is a tier 1 guy. The issue is that if he doesn't come back and it is not great right away, or like even takes a full year to like really return to glory, the pass rush outside of him is like super, super questionable.
Yeah.
They also lost Aaron Glenn. The new guy's name is slipping me right now. He's pretty cool though. He played linebacker for the Lions in like the 2018 season. In 2019, that's crazy to go from
Kelvin Shepherd
in the league as a linebacker to defensive coordinator of like a really good team, like 5-6 years. So that'll be cool, and we'll see how much he does of what Glenn likes to do or whatever. But the stars on this team, if Hutchinson comes back and is good to go, are crazy, obviously. Like him, Branch, Campbell, we've talked about. Kirby Joseph had a really great season last year. So it'd be nice to see the corners continue to improve. They've got some youth there, but as a whole, like, yeah, I think there's a lot to like about this defense. And as far as a bad playoff performance goes, since I've brought that up for a couple of other teams, they were just so injured at that point. I don't even think it's remotely fair to judge them based off of that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's the real concern with the corners is like, dude, all of them were hurt. Like every single one.
Also, Tyreek Williams, I think, will be good out of the gate. We didn't love that pick, but like, I think Tyreek Williams will.
You didn't love that pick.
Well,
some of us.
All right, fair enough. Blaiden. Here the thing is that like, maybe it wasn't the biggest swing, but like Tyreek Williams was a great player for OSU for a long time. He's very good at what he does. I think I have a hard time seeing him not being effective.
Yeah.
He does. Yeah, he's a lot like Reader. And I think the dominant run defenses can do a lot for them. Like the fact that when you run against the Lions and they're playing man and they got Branch down in the box, it's just not going to work. Like they've got Hutchinson back and they've got Reader and they've got McNeil coming back hopefully soon, and Williams.
They picked up DJ Reed. That's another huge gift from, not to totally derail your point, but to just that.
Yeah. So the fact that you just cannot run the football on them like whatsoever, and they're probably the number one defense in the league, that helps their case. And the pass rush has a way higher ceiling now that Hutchinson will be back. I agree that I don't want to get my expectations up too high with him because of the severity of his injury, and the pace he was on was 100% Mickey Mouse fake and all that. But I think there's a lot still going for them. Arnold in his second year, Reed showing up, Amik Robertson being good.
Yeah,
right?
like, dude, if Hutchinson is good, though, like the high-end outcome is they could be the best defense in the NFL.
And Kirby Joseph, right? Like he's getting paid like nothing, and he's a first-team All-Pro safety. You know, like there's just a lot of good players on this defense, and I think Campbell is a fantastic linebacker as well, and kind of the secret straw that stirs the drink here. The fact that he's kind of so good in both areas, coverage and run. Like he gives them that kind of 3-layer defense, right, where there's stars up front in the secondary, and there's Campbell, and I think he's extremely important.
I think the most wrong I've ever been for a draft is the Lions when they drafted Gibbs and Campbell, and I was like, that was such like a stupid first round. Like, why would you do that? And they're like, and they're like two of the best players at their position.
They balled out that draft, dude.
Yeah, dude. And they got Laporta and Branch, which I'm like, oh, I love those guys, but why'd you do that?
Yeah, at least we had the if you change the order, it's a great draft. I think that's like what we were saying after the second round.
That's exactly what we were saying. We're like,
just imagine Branch and then
imagine Branch was taken at 12. Well, imagine any of them were taken anywhere.
Branch should have gone at 12. He deserved the higher contract. That's all I'm saying.
He did.
Yeah, they really did.
But they messed up big time. But before we get into the rest of our top 5, I want to remind everyone to go and join the recent Stay Hot group chat over on Chat BCC. We've been talking all things NBA playoffs. We've been talking about, just general NFL offseason stuff. When Rodgers got traded, or not traded, I keep saying that. When Rodgers got signed to the Steelers, the group chat was going crazy in there. And we're talking about non-sport stuff as well. So make sure you're joining that. We will be doing a giveaway for any of the members who are in that group chat. If you remember, a long time ago, we did a giveaway with the Ed Sheeran NFL hats. And this time we will be doing, is it a Carolina Panthers gnome?
It's a Carolina Panthers garden gnome. You can win this time around. So if you are,
it's from the NFL shop, right?
It's for the NFL shop.
This is the NFL shop.
This is why we bring up the Ed Sheeran hat. They had those on the NFL shop. We gave those away. We said we got to find another NFL shop goodie. And while there's a lot of interesting things you can buy on there, like $1,200 jackets, which is like, or like a $12,000 mock Super Bowl ring, which is like, I don't know. We don't quite have the budget for that. And in general, I think we prefer the gnome in a vacuum.
But here's the thing. If you start sharing the show and you really blow up the Chat BCC group chat, maybe one day we will have the budget for one of those $1,200.
If we get 1 million people in there, we'll give away the Super Bowl ring.
Oh, dude. 1 million people for a Super Bowl ring? Yeah, guys, get on it.
We're giving away Cooper DeJean if we get 1 million people.
just the guy. So make sure, head on over to stayhot.chat, and if we get 1 billion people, we'll give away Cooper DeJean.
Just
if we get 1 million, a million people, we'll give away Cooper DeJean. All right, man. And then if and then we're going to give away the garden gnome. That is going to happen no matter
Regardless,
what. So make sure you are in the chat, and we hope to talk with you soon. If you're already in there, we'll be talking about the game 2 of the NBA Finals tonight.
Yes.
In there, so will be a fun time. Stayhot.chat with Chat BCC. So shout out to those guys.
Someone named Jank Baby asked me if I'm blowing fat clouds when I birdwatch. I said no.
Matt, someone was talking about your feet video at 3 a.m. and that.
What did they say?
I don't remember, but I just remember the reply after that was feet watching at 3 a.m. isn't gnarly.
Someone said, "Hey Matt, nice duck feet, nerd." That's exactly what they said.
Well, most of the people have been very, very positive. I've received so many comments who are like, "Thank you for speaking up about this." So I'm not going to be silenced about something like this, regardless of what you say in the Chat BCC group chat.
Oh yeah. Stayhop.chat, by the way. Stayhop.chat. Just put it in your browser. How much cooler can it be than having our own URL for that? But getting into the rest of our top 5 defenses in the NFL, at number 4, we have the Baltimore Ravens, which I think for the rest of this it'll be pretty textbook, but we'll see how things go here.
The Ravens have so many great players, especially in the secondary. My only question with them is, can they generate a pass rush with just 4 people? They've got their tricks, they've got their blitzes, but at the end of the day, do you need those things? Yes, you do. If you're the Ravens, you've got to become a little bit unsound on the defensive side to cook. And it's worked because they've got Nate Wiggins and they've got Kyle Hamilton and they've got Marlon Humphrey, who is like an absolute dog. And now they don't have even Brandon Stevens anymore, who is constantly getting picked on. So maybe they're just the greatest defense ever now. But I still think they need a little bit more pass rush, and they'd be probably number 1 because this is such a fantastic secondary.
I think they've obviously got a chance to be number 1. I think anybody in our top 5 does. But the secondary is totally elite. Starks was a good pick. I totally agree. Like, we're splitting hairs here, and they don't have maybe an A1 pass rusher. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if Mike Green brought them some juice that they didn't have last year. I was pretty high on him from an on-the-field perspective. And, I'm not necessarily expecting him to come in and just, like, totally change like the biggest negative with the Ravens defense, but I think they took a real shot at contributing to it. And also they did finish second in sacks last year. I know we're talking about getting pressure with 4, but this is a team that does get home a good amount. I also think Nate Wiggins is primed to take a step. I mean, they could have multiple guys who are getting all-pro votes at cornerback, and they could have the first team all-pro safety, and Starks could be great. Like, there's a lot there. And obviously you've got Roquan and Makuba. I mean, not Makuba, Metabike, but yeah.
Yeah, the linebackers need to bounce back. It's Smith and Trenton Simpson again, and Simpson got benched for Board at points last year.
which is bad. Like, really bad.
Board played well. I like Chris Board.
He played fine, but like Simpson's
got to read his keys, bro.
That was his job to lose, and he lost it.
Yeah, and so now they've got him back, and he still had high-end plays last year. It's not like it was completely terrible the entire season, but like there was definitely a point where he hit a wall and had to go. So we'll see if the linebackers can bounce back at all. Because I could see a world where the front 7 starts to get pretty leaky, but at the same time, they might just the defensive tackles might prevent that from happening, because Matabike and Travis Jones is a great one tech.
Yeah, and Travis Jones. And the thing is that like I don't want to get like too projecty, but I would be surprised if their rookie class, their top 2 guys, like contributed nothing, added nothing to this defense. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And they're not the only defense I'm saying that for. So, yeah.
No, they definitely might have the best 1-2 defensive punch in the draft, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't love Starks coming out, but that was like the one landing spot. I was like, well, if he is going to be good, it's going to be in Baltimore. And sure enough, like, because it's just like, and anywhere where he's like missing in his game, it's like, oh, Kyle Hamilton will just do that. Don't worry about it. So it's just like, there's just nothing to worry. Like, I'm just like, yeah, he's just going to be good. Like, it's a guarantee. I feel it in my soul. It is a lock that he's just going to be.
I think he's going to be good as well. Maybe he's like more of a Cam Bynum type of safety than like a Kyle Hamilton, where it's like he's just good, right? Like there's nothing that he's bad at, but is he taking anything over the top? Like that's how I feel about him. But it's good to have a good starter out there, right? And Ardarius Washington's a dog, even though he's an itty bitty guy. He packs a punch as well. So they got 3 good safeties. They got
what injury is he?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Because it's an Achilles injury. Oh,
Ardarius?
Yeah, so it would be like Harbaugh 11.
They say he's likely to return late season.
Oh, okay.
November or December. That was what Harbaugh said like 2 weeks ago. So
good catch. Why didn't I see that? I need to get on Twitter more, apparently. I didn't even see that he tore that.
Why?
You guys spend more time on your phone, buddy. That's your issue.
I've just been I've been enjoying the offseason too much. I didn't see that Darius Washington just tore his Achilles. That sucks. That sucks major ass, though, that he's good.
Yeah, that does suck. But getting into the top 3 here, at number 3, we have the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
Shout out to another defense that could be the best in the NFL and has some of the best players at multiple positions. Will Anderson's incredible. They have Danielle Hunter. And, of course, they have Derek Stingley Jr. on the back end. This defense could be nasty again. They also have C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
Right.
So yeah, this was the number 1 defense by far when it came to making plays on the ball last year. Like tipping it, intercepting it, tackles for loss and sacks, havoc plays, we call them, right? Their havoc rate was through the roof. They got to the playoffs, picked off Herbert, 4 times?
Yep.
They're a serious problem with that edge rushing duo, and Stingley obviously having crazy athleticism and ball skills, and Petrie had a fantastic year last year. Like Petrie was just absolutely all over the place. The perimeter of this defense, right, is got to be the best in the league. When you think about the edges and the corners, I think the middle is a little bit dicier with the defensive tackles and linebackers, right? But man, you just cannot really test deep against this team. Even Kalen Bullock had a great rookie season too, right? But maybe at the middle they're a little weak.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. The interior defensive line, I feel like, is not as strong. The linebackers aren't as strong, but they do make a ton of plays. Their secondary as a whole is pretty well-rounded. I don't know if it's quite as good as the Ravens, but it's close enough, and considering that they have like such a massive advantage with the edge rushers, it's pretty close between these two for me.
Yeah, I had the Texans above the Ravens. Just again, like you said, Theo, the number of havoc plays that they forced 19 interceptions last year. I mean, I think only one team had more than that. So, and we'll get to them here in just a second. So, I think at 3 is a perfectly reasonable spot.
Yeah, and maybe this Christian Harris experiment is just the long, hard road for D'Amico Ryans. Like maybe there's still some development left on the bone there for him.
I'm trying. I want to believe in Christian Harris so bad. Like, I don't know. At some point, you need him to just. Maybe it's the Kwity Paye. He's like the Kwity Paye of linebackers. Is that fair?
Maybe. Maybe.
Let us know in the chat, guys. Let us know in the comments. Is Christian Harris the Kwity Paye of linebackers? But entering the top 2 here, I am shocked at how this played out.
Really?
Denver Broncos. Matt, you and I both ranked them as the best defense in the NFL, and they came in at 2.
Because Theo, here's the thing. I have no issue with, obviously we have the Eagles at 1. I have no issue with the Eagles at 1. I went back on 4th on this one a long time.
Perfectly
What
fine.
makes you have Denver all the way down at 7, Theo? After you've been gassing them up for a lot of this offseason.
I got cold feet here at the very end with them. Still put them in the top 10, obviously. Obviously, they're a top 10 defense with the chance to be the best in the league. But the defensive volatility kind of scared me. You know, like if you were to run the season again, would they continually like have the best defense year in and year out? Like probably not, right? It goes up and down. And that's not, you could say that for any team, right? But I feel like especially the Broncos, who just came out of nowhere, right? But they were the number one defense, and they added Dre Greenlaw, they added Hufanga, they added Jahdae Barron, and I like all those guys a lot. But I just am not sure if those guys getting added to this defense automatically is going to make them number one over teams like the Ravens, where it's like Travis Jones is an absolute stud, and so is Marlon Humphrey, and so is Nate Wiggins, and so is Kyle Hamilton, and so is Roquan Smith, and so is, you know, Matabike. Like, I just don't quite see that level of proven star power on the Broncos outside of Surtain. Like, I like Zach.
What is that outside of names?
Outside of names?
They led the league in sacks last year, and their secondary has the depoy, and they added like 2 great players. Yeah.
I feel like awesome. Theo, I feel like you've been preaching the Zach Allen hype a lot.
He's really good.
Benito was really good last year.
Benito was really good, but they also, like, a lot of their EPA came from like Benito pick sixes, right? And like kind of these big plays and big swings and plays where like an 108-yard pick six from Surtain, right? Like that play is such a big swing that it impacts your EPA over the course of the whole season. Like, that's how big when you're about to allow a touchdown in.
But they also added many great players. This is the regression to the mean fallacy.
Stopper.
It's the fallacy, I'm calling it. Where because a team was greatly above their mean outcome the year prior, we assume and sometimes ignore great additions they made that would maybe prevent them from slipping greatly down.
So they'll stay at number one. Like, I don't think they'll slip
when the Dallas Cowboys
or anything.
Think about when Trevor Diggs was about to break the interceptions record, right? And everyone was like, well, he's going to regret. Like, he's not going to do that again. True. But you know who did go crazy on the interceptions? Deron Bland, right? They just found another guy to do that. You know,
but I mean, Diggs did go from 11 to 3. I mean, you can
I was thinking more like the Bengals, the year that after they made the Super Bowl, everyone's like, they're going to be in the dirt. It was a BS run, but they got better during the offseason, and they didn't like get all the way back, but they were. Yeah, well, okay, well, see, here's what I think. You're kind of just playing the odds.
Yeah.
Everybody's picking the Broncos at like 1 or 2. And the odds are, in terms of like EPA per play, especially in a very tough division, that they just won't hit that number. As the odds are that basically any team won't be literally number one. So like, yeah, the Bengals didn't get back to the Super Bowl, but they were still very good in the playoffs. And like, people who thought they would regress to the mean were wrong about them that year.
Yeah.
And I think here, the Broncos defense has added. Maybe they won't lead the league by 10 sacks, but I still think their pass rush is great overall. I know Greenlaw he has like a quad issue, right? He's not going to be good to go week 1. So I'll give you that. But I think Barron is probably going to be very good out of the gate, would be my guess. And I think their secondary as a whole is going to be incredibly, incredibly challenging. So I think, again, the Eagles are another good pick, but the Eagles also like lost some guys. We'll get into them. I don't want to make them out as an unreasonable pick for 1.
But here's the other thing about the Broncos, I'd say, is like, well, they were against playoff teams. Their defense didn't seem as great last year, right? Where they allowed 31 points to the Bills. They allowed 30 points to the Bengals. They allowed Jackson to have like a perfect passer rating in 41. Like, that was kind of the thing going into this offseason.
How many touchdowns did Jameis Winston throw against, you know?
Yeah, and I think the thing going into this offseason is like, okay, statistically they were fantastic, right? And a lot of that has to do with the game where the Chiefs had 0 starters out there and some of the big plays that they were able to have, right? But how does this defense go from like statistically good to something to a unit that can actually play a great offense and give them trouble? Because that could not that did not happen last year. They did not ever give a really good offense trouble. And I feel like the Eagles gave tons of good offenses a lot of trouble. Like I think the Eagles went up against the Ravens and they allowed, less than 20 points. So I think there was a big gap between where the Eagles defense and the Broncos defense like actually was last year, or even the Texans. Who I ranked.
I don't know. I mean, they let up 16 to Kansas City. I don't know if we're not counting them as a good offense.
Yeah,
I don't
guess
necessarily disagree. I think a lot of that is like coming down to basically like 2 games, right? They had a bad game against the Ravens and they had a bad game against Buffalo. But I'll say the opposite of something you've said earlier, where like you don't think the Broncos offense being totally stagnant kind of affected how the defense played in that one? If we're talking about just straight up points let up, I don't know. I can see your vision on this, but I don't think, I think 7 is too low. I think anything lower than 5, I just don't think on paper I can agree with that. And even then, like the Lions defense is counting on like a massive injury to break their way. Maybe they're not but if Hutchinson isn't good to go next year, like if it's a transition year, even early, like their pass rush is going to stink. And if it stinks, like there's only so good you can be, right? I don't feel that way about the Broncos. So I could see them down at 5. I think 7's too low. I think that's even below the bottom of the tier I'd have them in.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a much better defense than the Minnesota Vikings. Personally.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I could see it. I mean, if there's any free agent move that rivals, I think, what Saquon to the Eagles did, I think it could be Dre Greenlaw in this one. Like the fact that they add a linebacker who's potentially so elite behind that defensive line, like there's no telling what that could do to the overall defense. I'm sorry, the siren is so loud.
They're about to get you, bro. Make this point quick, buddy.
I am in Denver. They hear me say these things.
No, you are, yeah.
I'm not that far from the stadium. So, yeah. But like one thing that scared me is like Greenlaw already got hurt this offseason. And I was like, like he tore his Achilles. He came back one game. He got hurt again. He's in the offseason. Right. He got hurt again. Like, is that really going to come to fruition where like everybody hits the ground running and like this defense goes from like good to like super number 1 great? Like it could happen, but also I think the tightrope is a little bit.
I think that's fair.
More than when I originally signed. I think that the vision for them being number 1 is a little narrower than I initially thought when those signings happened. But they should still be a great defense, and I still really like what Sean Payton.
I don't know. I do worry that if the division is really great, that like it just crushes their ability to be like statistically number 1. I'll say after talking on here, I'm glad we have the Eagles at 1. It's close. It's really close. But I think the Eagles at 1 is perfectly fair. Now, they lost a couple of guys. Sweat and Williams are like no small players. Not to have them on the defensive line means that you're going to need other guys to step up, like we talked about earlier. Nolan Smith comes to mind in particular. But I still think I look at their defensive line, I see a pretty good rotation. And really what keeps them up here for me is the fact that I think they have the best 1-2 defensive ad punch in this draft class with Campbell and Makuba.
Yeah.
Adding that to already having Mitchell and like DeJean out there, I mean, dude, they've just got so many guys who can fly around in coverage. And that's really what I love about Campbell and Makuba, is that they both add to the strength of like Campbell's ability to cover space and stick on like tight ends is ridiculous, man. He's a total baller. His movement's great and he reacts super well and zone or whatever. And Makuba is the same way. I wasn't shocked at all when the Eagles picked them. I remember that's the one pick of the draft where I'm sitting there watching them pick it. So I'm like, yeah, okay, that's Makuba for sure. You know they're about to do that.
Oh, yeah,
So I think their secondary is going to be freaky elite. I think their coverage is going to be freaky elite. And I'm talking about Campbell's like, who they got next to him is Bond, who's first team All-Pro, right? As a whole, like this defense just completely, they made the Super Bowl boring. And granted, the offense did that as well. But granted, we had like their offense at like 3 or 2 or 1 when we did that ranking.
check.
And my takeaway from this, I think there's some teams that could compete against them for the Super Bowl. Like the Ravens, I feel like are a really good pick to win the Super Bowl or come out of the AFC. I like them. I think things are trending their way. Lamar's playing his best football. This could totally be their year. But on paper, like I'm sure the Eagles are still the betting odds favorite. And I have a hard time picking anybody other than the Eagles to win it all without being like I'm intentionally not picking the favorite. That's kind of my stance on it. Maybe we do something. Right now I would say Eagles, Ravens would be my pick.
Yeah, I see that. I said Bills earlier, but maybe we did not mention their defense in this.
No, we haven't.
Ranking, and that does make me nervous.
I question their secondary. I don't think they're like their pass rush. I like the Bosa ad. I like taking a shot on that, but like their pass rush duo is not like crazy strong or any like crazy strong.
They had such a great offseason, I think, because they signed a bunch of people to great contracts. Like they got great value, but it's all their own people. So they didn't actually get a crazy amount better on defense, right? Like maybe some other teams did. But yeah, with the Eagles, you hit the nail on the head, Matt, where they're losing a lot of people. But everybody that they're losing, we trust their backup. We love Nolan Smith. We love Makuba. We love Ajamo. Excuse me.
And we feel very strongly about this.
He's getting choked up.
I don't know why that happened to my voice.
We love Nolan Smith a lot, let me tell you.
I mean, they probably have the best linebacking core in football right now with Bond, Dean, and Campbell, right?
Yeah, dude.
Is there a team with a better like group of 3 linebackers?
I mean, Dean has got a terrible injury, so
that's true.
If he's healthy, no.
Man, I'm really excited about Campbell there. I think they're going to be really, really good. I think they're going to be.
Yeah. The only concern I have is like depth on the defensive line, but like with the current guys, but like if you just throw out like their starting 11 right now on defense, I'm like, are they the best in the NFL there? Maybe.
And you think about the coordinator, right? Like Fangio's that guy. I think one of the most important things about being a dynasty is your defensive coordinator. It feels like, and to have Fangio locked up as a guy who's probably not going to get another head coaching opportunity because he's like an old fart DC. Like that's the best hack you can have is that, and they have that. Blaiden, you sound like an 8-bit cartoon, which is fine because we're about to wrap this thing up.
I would say almost even worse. You've sounded like an 8-bit cartoon before. It's your phantom power, bro.
It's your phantom.
All right, let's call this episode.
Matt, how about you wrap us? You take us.
All right, I'll take us home. Actually, I will run down the top 10. Browns, Steelers, Chiefs, Seahawks, Vikings, Lions, Ravens, Texans, Broncos, Eagles was the consensus. And as always, we'll catch you on the flippity flop.